Hi, everyone. It is the first real interview with Kyle Rittenhouse since he was acquitted by a jury. Ashley Banfield joins us with some of the blockbuster moments coming up. But first, it has happened again. Another premeditated, organized mass looting incident at a major retailer last night in California. As we told you last night, this is a rapidly growing issue nationwide, and only few in media are really covering it. Last night's target, the Nordstrom in Los Angeles' high-end shopping mall, The Grove. According to police, it started around 10:40 p.m. local time. 20 looters were involved in the smash and grab. They used a sledgehammer to shatter the store's windows and steal thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. The thieves fleeing in 4 vehicles. One group of suspects led police on a freeway chase and later a foot pursuit through South Los Angeles, ending in the arrest of 3 of the suspects. Police finding this Nissan SUV. In it, clothes, cash register, ski masks, and gloves. Coiled security barriers deployed all around the Grove overnight after the heist. Now, before we go big picture on this, let's just go live to the scene. NewsNation's Nancy Liu is there. Nancy, how did this group of thieves orchestrate this one?
Well, Dan, it's often a similar scenario: smash, grab, and run. We are on the street side entrance of the Nordstrom here at the Grove. You can see the display window already boarded up and painted over. Last night, of course, a very different scene. Shattered glass, a sledgehammer on the ground, and the telltale signs of yet another smash and grab. This Nordstrom was targeted just before 11 p.m. by about 20 looters. LAPD caught 3 people, but many others are on the run with thousands of dollars in merchandise. In a new tactic here, law enforcement rolling out a slinky-like coil to deter thieves. It's put in place after hours and will prevent looters from parking their getaway vehicles closer to high-end stores, and it will certainly slow down a mass getaway by a large number of looters. Now, LAPD also focused on another emerging trend, and Dan, that is follow home robberies. That's when customers, as you can imagine, carrying their bags, shopping bags from high-end stores, they're followed to their cars, followed to their homes, and then robbed, sometimes at gunpoint. Dan?
Well, and that's even scarier to some degree, because there you're talking about individuals as opposed to just a store overnight. Nancy, thank you very much for this report. Appreciate it. You know, an hour prior to the Nordstrom incident, a CVS just 10 miles away was hit. Police saying several guys entered the store, took 6 cash registers, about $8,500 in cash. And in Beverly Hills on Sunday, a sledgehammer was used to smash the glass of Louis Vuitton in Saks Fifth Avenue. Thieves weren't able to get inside. If you watched our show last night, you know this crime spree is hitting other major cities across the country. Over the weekend, there were multiple smash and grabs, including a Nordstrom in San Francisco. It included 80 looters who blocked off the store with their cars, terrorized shoppers, assaulted employees. There was also a Louis Vuitton where looters shattered windows, getting away with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. Just outside Chicago last Wednesday, more than a dozen people stole $120,000 worth of merchandise from yet another Louis Vuitton store. Suspects wearing masks and hooded sweatshirts grabbed bags and other goods before storming out. I said this last night on the show, and it feels like it needs to be said again. These are not just isolated local events. It should be relegated to local news. This is a trend in big cities where brazen criminals clearly believe they can get away with brazen crimes. Joining me now is retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Sergeant Dorsey, thank you for coming on the show. All right, so you know Los Angeles. You've worked in Los Angeles. Before this incident occurred, I was asking my guest on a show on another night what we can do about this. What do you make of this effort to put up the coiling, and what else can be done from a policing perspective?
Well, you know, there's only so much you can do because everyone is being reactive as opposed to, well, they're kind of being proactive with these coils. But, I mean, you don't know where they're going to hit. You don't know when they're going to hit. And, of course, I think the Los Angeles Police Department is the best in the world. And they didn't have the temerity to go into one of our stores during business hours. They waited, like the cowards that they are, until the business was closed. And then they smashed the window and grabbed everything that they could from there. So business owners are going to have to rethink how they secure their merchandise within their store. Start tying stuff down. Listen, I know as a female who spends a lot of time doing retail therapy, I like to pick it up and see how it looks on me, in my hand, on my feet, and all of that. But you're going to have to think different because we're in a different time now.
You know, what frightens me about this is these are orchestrated events, but not just with like a handful of people. I mean, some of them, this one involved 20 people. The one in San Francisco involved 80 people. I mean, are these criminals just presuming that if we go in with enough people, we just won't get caught?
I think so. They're opportunists, and maybe it's the law of averages. Maybe they've already designated a couple of people who are willing to go to jail if they get caught. It makes no sense to me, but they certainly should make an absolute example out of those that they do catch. And we understand that there are cameras all over major cities now, and I'm sure some of these folks will have a visitor probably very soon because license plates are going to get picked up. And so we need to start making an example of them to deter this bad behavior.
Well, let me ask you about that. I mean, you mentioned that the license plates getting picked up. Are they going to be able to catch these people? I mean, some of these people are literally using their cars to help block in the area. And as you point out, if there are cameras around, security cameras, et cetera, they should be able to get license plates. You think that they're going to be able to catch many more of the people involved?
Well, I think the onus is on the business owners to make sure that they harden their targets and that they do a better job of enhancing their security. Listen, they're going to spend money one way or another. You either spend it on security or you're going to spend it in lost profits because of merchandise that's being stolen. I don't understand how 25 cars could gather, assemble, block traffic, and no one noticed that and think it's odd. Well, now that we're talking about it publicly, folks, if you see something, say something.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, when we decided to do this story, one of the things I kept asking my producers is, wait a second, the cars literally created a sort of barrier around the store so they could go in? I mean, I've never even heard of something like that. And again, this is starting to feel like the new norm, which is the really scary part about it, right? I mean, we hear about incidents of looting typically in the wake of, you know, some sort of riots or whatever the case may be. But now this is starting to feel more like the norm, which is just so frightening.
Well, you know, I've heard from some friends in Northern California that one of the things that they're deploying up there is that they're creating a distraction, if you will. Cars are doing donuts in the middle of a street, a block or two away, and police respond to that, not knowing that at a nearby mall, foolishness is occurring. And so police are just going to have to get smarter. These kids are having a good time. And like I said, it's fun until it's not.
Well, I hope that they figure out a way to make sure it's not. Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, thank you. Please stick around. I want you to weigh in on some intense body cam footage later in the show. Also coming up, breaking tonight in the trial of the 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery. The jury suggests they are very close. All signs indicating they could have a verdict in the morning. You know Judge Glenda Hatchett from her TV show. She's also a former Georgia judge. She knows the law. She joins us next. Breaking news in the trial of the 3 men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. The jury has broken for the night, but they are indicating that they are close to reaching a verdict. Travis McMichael, his father Gregory McMichael, and William Roddy Bryan accused of confronting and killing 25-year-old Arbery in February of 2020. They're all charged with murder. They've all pled not guilty to the charges. Now, this is the video of the incident. You see Travis McMichael and his father in the vehicle up there trying to stop and eventually killing Arbery while he was running. William Bryan is behind filming it all. The defense for the McMichaels is that they were trying to effectuate a citizen's arrest and that Arbery attacked, and Travis McMichael shot him in self-defense. Before the jury was sent out, lead prosecutor Linda Dunikowski made one final rebuttal to arguments the defense made during their closing arguments.
And they're in it together. Greg McMichael and Travis McMichael are acting together in concert in the truck. Their actions are all together. They're parties to the crime. Even though Greg McMichael is in the back of that pickup truck on that 911 call, when Travis pulls this trigger, he is still responsible because he's a party to this crime. Because without Greg McMichael, this would never have happened. Travis McMichael never said to the police, I was making an arrest, I was trying to arrest him for the crime of this. Wouldn't that be really, really important? Hey, I was trying to effectuate a citizen's arrest for this crime that I know he committed. Wouldn't that be something you'd tell the police? Never once. Never told Mr. Arbery he was under arrest. Never said, I saw him commit the crime of blank today. But what did Mr. Bryan do? Well, Mr. Bryan got in front of him and then went to back up at him, and that's when he turned up Holmes. Those are the words of Mr. Bryan. I pulled in front of him, I backed up at him, and that's when he turned up Holmes. Therefore, the criminal attempt at false imprisonment substantially contributed to the felony murder. Based on that alone, ladies and gentlemen, criminal attempt at false imprisonment, guilty. Felony murder for that, on all of them. Mr. Bryan included, and the McMichaels, guilty on felony murder. This isn't about whether these three men are good people or bad people. That's not what this is about. It's about responsibility. It's about holding people accountable and responsible for their actions. When they do something like this, they have to be held accountable and responsible. Nobody gets a free pass.
Now, they're being tried together, but there are three separate defendants. Each has presented his own defense. Attorneys for both of the McMichaels are relying on that citizen's arrest law. And many have questions about exactly what that means. So we've pulled precisely how Judge Timothy Walmsley described it to the jury. This case basically comes down to this instruction, because if the McMichaels did not have a right to stop Ahmaud Arbery, it's almost certainly going to be murder. Let's listen.
A private person may arrest an offender if the offense is committed in his presence or within his immediate knowledge. If the offense is a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, a private person may arrest him upon reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion. The terms "in his presence" and "within his immediate knowledge" are synonymous in a crime committed in one's presence only if, by the exercise of any of his senses, he has knowledge of its commission, or by the accused admitting that such a crime is being or has been committed. A private person may not act on the unsupported statement of others alone. A private citizen's warrantless arrest must occur immediately after the perpetration of the offense, or in the case of felonies, during escape. If the observer fails to make the arrest immediately after the commission of the offense, or during escape in the case of felonies, his power to do so is extinguished.
All right, I know the jury instructions are boring. The jurors have to listen to them, and it's absolutely critical. The problem is there was no felony here committed by Arbery. Now, the defense for William Roddy Bryan is a little stronger. They say he had nothing to do with the shooting and that his presence behind them had no impact on Arbery's death. During the instructions, Judge Walmsley told the jurors, this is shorter, that they do not have to find Bryan guilty of the same charges.
If you do not believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant William R. Bryan is guilty of aggravated assault as alleged in count 7 of the indictment, but you do believe beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant William R. Bryan is guilty of the lesser offenses just listed, you would be authorized to find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty of the lesser and should so indicate on the verdict form.
Basically, translation is you don't have to convict them all of the same thing, and that very well may happen. Judge Glenda Hatchett is back with us, former chief presiding judge of the Fulton County, Georgia Juvenile Court, founding partner of the Hatchett firm in Atlanta. Judge, thanks for coming back on the show. We appreciate it. All right, So let me first ask you, what do you make of the fact that the jury seems to be close to a verdict? I had someone ask me earlier, well, couldn't that mean that they've all been acquitted because the jury went through it so quickly? And my response was, in theory, it could, with a different case and a different set of facts, but I actually think it may be just the opposite, which is that this maybe really wasn't that hard a case for these jurors.
I tell you, Dan, I gave up a long time ago trying to predict what jurors will do in this case.
I got to do it for a living. Yeah.
Yes, but I will tell you that the fact that they said that they wanted to deliberate a little bit longer tonight and then came back and said, no, we're going to start again tomorrow, suggests to me that there are some holdouts on this jury, quite frankly. If they came back as quickly as they did, and people say, well, it's not quick because it's 6 hours, but in the scheme of things, you think about all the charges against 3 defendants, we're talking about 9 charges each. And for them to come back as quickly as they did, it may also mean that they have decided that they are not going to find these men guilty.
Come on. Come on. You really think,
quick,
I mean, I know it's a possibility, but you don't actually think that a
really
jury
don't.
of 12 people has unanimously determined that the McMichaels, father and son, are not guilty?
No, I honestly don't. But I'm also concerned if they come back quickly with a verdict that it could be that. I think that what will happen is I think there's probably a holdout. I think that's probably why they broke for the night, and there's probably some holdout here. But at the end of the day, I think the McMichaels are going to be found guilty, and I think that there's going to be a different resolution for Roddy. And I think so because if it had not been for him, we would not have the videotape, and I think there's going to be some kind of concern and some kind of adjustment because of that.
I want to play, because he's the critical one. I got to say, I want to play a piece of sound. This is the prosecutor trying to ensure that the jurors, this is number 8, view him in the same way as the others. This is today. Let's listen.
Okay.
How in the world could defendant Brian be held responsible if he was in his Silverado filming the murder at the time Travis McMichael murdered Ahmaud Arbery? How could Greg McMichael be held responsible? Okay, it's real simple. Party to a crime. The law does, in Georgia, believe that everybody who helped, encouraged, advised, went inside a house and grabbed their son and told him to get a shotgun and come on, they're all equally responsible for the ultimate death of the victim. Because a person is a party to a crime only if that person directly commits the crime. When 3 people chase an unarmed man in 2 pickup trucks with guns in order to violate his personal liberty, who gets to claim, I'm not really responsible for that? Under the law in Georgia, no one gets to say that. Everybody is responsible.
All right, maybe Judge Hatcher can't hear me, but let me say this.
I can
Oh, I'm
now.
sorry.
I'm
I was just
sorry,
asking.
Dan.
I was real quick. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that it's a harder sell. I think that, we as lawyers understand what the statute says. We understand what the requirements are. We understand them acting in concert. But I really think that there may well be a different resolution for Roddy in this situation.
I think so, too. I think so, too. Look, I am predicting that there will be a conviction. We shall see. My prediction is that there will be a conviction of both the McMichaels for murder, and that Roddy will get convicted of something lesser. Judge Glenda Hatchett, as always, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Coming up, gas prices skyrocketing. We can all agree on that. But CNN and Fox both have had to change their narratives for or against Biden based on what's happening in the news. It's coming up next. Time now for our Meteorite Moments, where we check in on the day's bias, buzz, and bull in the world of cable news and beyond. There's no question that gas prices have been skyrocketing, which is a real story with serious implications for almost all Americans. But of course, given the state of cable news, Americans get a different twist depending on where they get their news, which is, of course, absurd. Let's start with the more conservative media, largely dedicated to blaming the White House for nearly everything bad, attributing rising gas prices to President Biden's inaction.
President Biden and the White House blaming gas companies for the soaring price at the pump.
Joe Biden has been an absolute disaster when it comes to energy poverty.
Why is gas going up? When you shut down pipelines in America, you hurt the supply. So
the gas prices going up is what they want.
The Biden administration is going to have to do something about this because it is costing American families much more than they expected.
But then the question was, well, what can the president really do about rising gas prices? Well, according to CNN, not much.
President Biden weighs new steps right now to try to tackle soaring gas prices, even as experts warn there's little he can do to bring them down.
Is there much the president can actually do to fix some of these problems, inflation, gas prices, supply chain?
There's not much, frankly, that the White House can do about prices, especially gas prices at this point.
There really is little that any politician or any president, like President Biden, can do to offer relief when it comes to gas prices quickly, right?
Then, alas, news broke overnight that Biden would release the National Oil Reserve to try to ease pricing pressures for the holidays. So both CNN and Fox had to scramble their commentary to fit with the news. On CNN, suddenly it seemed the president could do something about it.
President Biden is set to announce that he will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices.
President Biden is making a move that he hopes can lower gas prices.
President Biden's new plan to fight rising gas prices. Matt, will this release of these millions of barrels move the needle?
I mean, I think it already has moved the needle. Gas prices could go a little bit lower, maybe 10, 15, 20 cents a gallon.
What happened to there isn't anything the president can do? And on Fox, they must be thrilled that he's finally doing something, right?
As Americans grapple with the surging cost of gas and heating prices, but is it a little too late?
Listen, I think this is all for public consumption, public relations kind of stuff.
This is called spitting into the wind, okay? And you know what happens when you do that.
The way he's going about it is the wrong way, and he's going to lead to higher prices, not lower prices. Now,
why the president came out here and pointing fingers at others is really not the solution.
Bottom line, the partisan media just want to complain, they want to cheerlead, they want to create outrage, rather than focus on what is actually good or bad for the country. And that is our wrap of the day's media bias, buzz, and bull. It wasn't just the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that divided the nation. It was Kyle Rittenhouse himself. And tonight, in the first real post-acquittal interview by a real journalist, Rittenhouse sat down with Ashley Banfield of NewsNation.
But looking back on it, you regret being there that night?
I wouldn't say I regret. I regret going there. I don't regret defending myself. I regret making the decision to go there. But what I'm trying to say is, if I could go back, I would not have gone there.
Joining us now is Ashley Banfield. Ashley, we are very much looking forward to this interview. But first, let me just ask you, what did you make of Kyle Rittenhouse?
And I think that's a great question, Dan, because I don't think everybody who has been weighing in on this on either side really knows this kid. And I say kid because he's 18. I know that you can execute people who are 18 in this country, and I know they can fight wars. However, he's an unusual story in that he's rich and there's a lot of depth. He's very knowledgeable. He's very smart. He is, I say he's sort of gone to the school of, oh my God, for the last year. And I would say he's also slightly coached because he's been living lawyerdom, obviously for over a year as well. So he's very measured and careful in his responses, but he's also knowledgeable and he sticks to, his devices when he's answering a question. It's hard to get him to cough it up if he's decided not to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I want to play another piece from your interview where he did sort of give you a direct answer to a question. Let's listen.
Are you thinking of changing your name?
I am considering changing my name and growing a beard maybe, losing some weight. I gained it all back during this stressful time.
Ashley, when I listened to that part of your interview, and I put that together with something he said in that previous interview he did, where he said that he supports BLM. It made me think that this is not a guy who wants to become a sort of right-wing hero and go on the sort of speaking tour around the country and sort of become a kind of fringe character, and instead sort of wants to go on and start his life over.
Aha. I think you hit the nail on the head, and that was what I wanted to get at. look, you pick your first interview with Tucker Carlson, who is known to be the standard bearer for the right wing, and that's what people are going to think of you. I got a very different Kyle. I'm not going to lie. I do not think for a minute that he wants to ally with either side. He's frustrated by the politics. He told me as such that he doesn't feel he owes it to anyone to carry their torch for them. He's thankful for the people who raised money for him, but doesn't want to fly their banner. He's been asked by some very high-profile people to come and take pictures, and he's declined. He also had a remarkable answer to why he posed in a bar with Proud Boys making an OK sign, which is a known emblem. And I'm going to make you wait to watch it at 10 because I was a bit flabbergasted by his answer. But he really doesn't come across as the kind of kid that had a lot of preconceived, convictions going into this rally when he found himself in a situation that became, sort of a national spotlight.
All right, before you go, I need to ask you about the recent developments in the Petito laundry investigation, because you have been all over this. His autopsy coming back, it now seems he shot himself in the head. His attorney making this statement. He said Chris and Roberta Laundrie have been informed that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and the manner of death was suicide. Chris and Roberta are still mourning the loss of their son and are hopeful that these findings bring closure to both families. I'm not sure that it will to the other family, but there was a gun missing from the Laundrie's home. I guess the question now is where that gun is now.
Well, this is what kind of had me flummoxed, because when they found his remains, we were, sort of going through meticulously all the different things that could have happened. And one of my observations from doing this a while is that if he shot himself, you can't likely shoot yourself in the head and then go hide the gun while you're either dead or dying. So they will know if there's a gun close to the body. Maybe they just didn't tell us. I don't know what the advantage of that was, but you know what? Law enforcement works in mysterious ways, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it isn't. But I do find it interesting that that was the method that he chose. The fact that there's a gun missing from the Laundries, I wouldn't read too much into that, in that maybe Brian took a gun from his parents' house that they didn't know was missing until they knew it was missing, and he was too.
Yeah.
But I do find what you said to be on the nail. You hit the nail on the head with that one, Dan. I don't think that gives any closure to the Petitos at all.
Yeah, and again, every statement that the Laundrie family attorney has put out has, I think, I shouldn't say every, many of the statements that the Laundrie family attorney has put out, I think, has really just sort of inflamed things rather than settling them, always trying to suggest that they're on the same page, right? It's always in all the statements as if they're together in this, that they hope they're going to find Gabby, that they hope that this provides closure to the families, et cetera. And the family of Gabby Petito, and I can assure you that they don't want to be looped in with the family of Brian Laundrie.
No, and Joe Petito always takes the high road. I give him a lot of marks for that, because I don't think I could maintain my composure, having gone through the last 3 months that he's gone through, and then the continued insult upon injury. Look, I'm not the Laundries either, and I don't know how I would have managed that story had it shown up on my driveway with a white transit van. So listen, it's easy to cast aspersions when you're not walking in shoes, but I think there's enough angst to go around that I don't think this final finding of how Brian actually died is going to make a difference to the fact that he just died.
Yeah. Ashley Banfield, thank you. And of course, you don't want to miss Ashley's interview with Kyle Rittenhouse tonight. It is at 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on NewsNation. Coming up, an officer responds to a 911 call about a guy making trouble at a gas station, ends up running for his life as the suspect runs to his car and starts to drive away. Coming up. Time for our police cam segment showing the dangers officers face across the country. Before we show you the body cam, this was the 911 call that started the incident from a gas station clerk in Riverside, California, reporting a man who refused to leave.
I have a guy outside the store who's riding it's like a skateboard or a scooter, and we already asked him not to ride inside the store, and he keeps on doing it. He's panhandling with the customers.
An officer went to question the suspect, Edgar Bajarano, who who was on parole for possession of stolen property.
Face away from me. Face away and pretend to be on your back, all right, dog? Just keep on about. I'll tell you in a little bit. I'm gonna tell you in a little bit. Just relax. I'm gonna tell you in a little bit, dude. Don't try to fight, dude. 35-foot pursuit. Run. Run. Oh, wait, kill me. Dude, get on the ground. Stop. Stop fighting. Stop fighting.
Now, Bairano ran to a Ford that he had actually stolen 3 days earlier. He resisted, and the officer's body cam malfunctioned in the fight for about 20 seconds. It took another 20 seconds for the camera to start working again. During that time, the suspect started the truck and hit the officer with it.
Shots fired. Shot fired. Rear to the AMPM. Keep your heads out.
Now, as the suspect revved the engine, the officer got up and fired 3 times. The shots missed Bairano, but he put his hands up and was arrested by other officers as they arrived. The officer hit with the truck was taken to the hospital and treated for minor injuries. Bairano was charged with multiple counts, including assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, resisting arrest, using violence and possession of a stolen vehicle. Back with me now, retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Sergeant Dorsey, good to see you. So a clerk called 911 early in the morning after the suspect was bothering customers, wouldn't leave. That is the type of call that officers get on a fairly regular basis, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know every police agency is different, but, you know, those are the kinds of calls, in my mind, that you never want to respond to as a solo officer, as a one, unit car, because we like the numbers in our favor. And if you have someone who's, we call it 415, uncooperative, not complying with what a merchant is asking them, leave my property. I need backup, because I don't want to have what happened with this officer get into a situation and now you've got to wait for responding units to get there. There are always telltale signs when somebody is going to do something. We have a term, he's acting hinky. He gets in a car and he runs over me. That's assault with a deadly weapon. Certainly could have killed that officer. He's very lucky himself, the suspect, to be alive.
Now, the suspect ran from the officer. He then got into a fight with him. As we mentioned, the body cam was not working for about 20 seconds. But let's see it. Let's see it again.
Don't try to fight, dude. 35-foot pursuit. Run. Oh, wait, kill me. Dude, get on the ground. Stop fighting.
So there is the point where, right at that moment when the body cam goes off and then it comes back, the suspect then hits the officer with the truck. As you pointed out, this could have had a truly tragic ending.
Yeah, and I don't want to second guess the officer, but, sometimes when we don't anticipate a thing going sideways, poor tactics lead to these kinds of incidents, leads to officer-involved shooting. Luckily, the officer wasn't seriously hurt. I wonder why he didn't ask for backup just a little bit sooner. I wonder if there was something that showed as a red flag to him that this could be problematic.
The officer fires and then the suspect surrenders. It's a little hard to tell, but did you get the sense that it was the shots that led him to give up?
It's hard to say because at that point he was in the car and he could have actually driven away. Maybe he just didn't know what he wanted to do. He didn't have a plan B. But again, you hit me with a car, I promise you things are going to end differently.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that makes this segment more broadly so significant is that we are seeing incidents like this happen every day, right? I mean, they aren't in the news. They aren't covered every day. When a police officer engages in some sort of conduct where people question it, et cetera, and there's a video of it, it's all over the news, right? Police misconduct, et cetera. But when a police officer is attacked, et cetera, it doesn't get a whole lot of media coverage, does it?
No, that's I would ask the question of media folks. Obviously, you are different in that regard, and you're sharing these kinds of stories. But this is the kinds of things that officers face day in and day out, and that's why it's so important for us not to become complacent, to never take for granted that an encounter is going to go the way we expect. I'm always antsy and thinking that things could go sideways, and always I would much rather err on the side of I need assistance, I need backup, have too many officers there before it goes sideways in the event that this person might want to fight, and then maybe have an opportunity to try to get him into custody, de-escalate the situation without having to use deadly force.
Well, I'll say that if I had been a criminal, I would not have wanted Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey on the other side. Sergeant Dorsey, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. That does it for us tonight. NewsNation Prime starts right now, and don't forget, at 10 o'clock, Ashley Banfield's big interview with Kyle Rittenhouse. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.